Hey everyone, welcome to Conversations in Pop Culture, and we are back in the saddle once again for another season. And I have with me cosplayer and photographer Brandon Jackson slash Chief Geek Photography, and I'm super excited to have you on. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, as I stated, I'm very excited to have you on because you are interesting because you are a cosplayer. You also are a cosplayer photographer. Yeah, obviously, thank you for your service. I just want to publicly acknowledge that because you are a retired veteran. But I do kind of want to dive into the photography side of things first because I don't get to speak to photographers in cosplay ever, let alone male photographers.
Mhm.
And so I'm really curious how you got into photography and cosplay photography because it can make or break if you have a bad photographer when you're shooting cosplay. Heavily, heavily.
Yeah. All right. So funny story. I go ahead and I fell into photography. It was literally by accident. Never imagined myself becoming a photographer. And it's my obsessive personality is the reason why I'm the photographer I am today. So I started off as a cosplayer, started cosplaying Star Wars and things like that around 2015. And then as you see, I have all my collection. And I got really irritated with always doing like camera phone pictures. It just wasn't what I envisioned to do. And my beautiful wife, she, rest in peace, she had gifted me for my birthday with a camera. And I started taking pictures of my figures and I started taking them out in the backyard, doing all kinds of action, recreating things. And then it was, I believe, WonderCon 2015. I took my camera with me to WonderCon and I started taking photos and people liked them. And I was like, wow, okay. And then, like, shortly after that celebration came, so in Anaheim, and I took photos there. And I started having people hitting me up saying, hey, do you do weddings? I want you to take this. Or, hey, would you do my family photos? And hey, would you photograph my retirement? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm a noob and I don't have any skills. And I was just like, self-defeating myself before it even happened. And so I had this idea. I was just like, how am I going to practice? Well, I know is how important photography is to cosplayers, and they're willing and ready models that I don't have to pay. That I don't have to pay. I can give them photos and I can practice my skills without actually having to practice on my paying clients. And so I became obsessive. Every con, every anime con, every comic book convention, every con that was in Southern California, I was making sure I was at to practice my skills. And I was going from 8 in the morning, so I got good parking, and till sundown in all different variable lightings. I was photographing because I had my goal was how can I eventually make money? The goal was to get to weddings on a big scale. And so I was shooting for industry called Club Cosplay. I was doing concerts. I was doing military retirements because of the ceremonial, being able to do action in that. I was doing kid photos and just all of those sorts of things. And eventually, as the word got out there that hey, I do weddings and stuff, people started asking me to shoot their weddings, and then I built up my client base from there. And I still love doing cosplay photography. That's my heart. I love doing charity work, like for the photographing for the 501st, Rebel Legion, Star Wars community, and things like that. And so that's pretty much how I fell into being the cosplay photographer that I am. Started off with the toys.
So I mean, I'm a big Steve Harvey fan, and he talks a lot about this, and he really utilizes it very much with God, and he talks about gifts,
Mm-hmm.
and it sounds like you kind of fell into a gift in a lot of ways, inadvertently, accidentally, but it's very cool when people actually fall into a gift that they
Mm-hmm.
have, and they're very good at it, and then, well, the question, and I'm probably gonna mess it up, but you know, when you ask for something, you receive it in a lot of ways, and it's super interesting in that regard. But I definitely don't want to go down a whole religious Steve Harvey thing. There's plenty of YouTube motivational things with him. So if you want to go down that path, I completely understand everybody. You can come back to this later. I get it. But I do want to talk about sort of photography in general and cosplay stuff, because it is interesting that obviously you go to a con, and how do you even go to a con and then figure out how to shoot a cosplayer and ask them and get involved in that? Because I hate to say this, and it's going to sound really weird, but some cosplayers are very difficult sometimes, and
Hmm.
some have photographers they work with, and also not stepping on somebody else's toes, because
Hmm.
there's a lot of politics that goes on at cons and shooting, and also making sure you're supposed to be where you're supposed to be as a photographer, because it's tricky.
Yeah, it is tricky, and as a person, like, when I retired, I started traveling. So I actually, as a photographer in Southern California, am sort of spoiled when I say that, because the synergy and relationship between cosplayers and photographers is totally different from the East Coast and other regions of the country and the other regions of the world, and I can actually appreciate that. So for me, a lot of it comes from my experience being working with people on a constant basis in the medical field through the military. And one thing, I just always being kind and being polite and being approachable, and remembering too that I was a nerd, am a nerd, and I'm a cosplayer, and treating people the way I want to be treated, and just being genuine. Because even in the military, I've always mentored, how to be a gentleman and stuff like that, and how to be approach people and to be kind at all times. And just, I think it's my approachable nature that I am is the reason why people like working with me, or even that. Because one of the the best feelings I have is finding someone who's very shy, completely introverted, very socially awkward. Even in cosplay, they don't feel comfortable at all. And being able to take that person and making them smile. Like, I usually have music playing when I'm shooting. I tell them go into character. And also too, I adamant believe in never ask a cosplayer to do a pose that you can't recreate for them, except for the Black Widow and Spider-Man stuff. Usually they love doing those poses. They already know what to do. You just say, do it, do it. But most, because I'm 44 years old and I've been in the military, my body is damaged. I can't get down like that. But at the same time, like I usually tell, if I'm working with a female, I was like, okay, put your hair to the side, go put your chest out like that, put my hands in their head, and literally get the pose. If I want them to do a pose, I will recreate it for them. And a lot of times it gets a good laugh, because here I'm this big black guy, 250 pounds here, doing this sexy, like, looking over the shoulder and off and majestic, and they'll start laughing and they go into it, and it's just that moment right there when I see them loosen up and just relax. And sometimes it's even the talk speed of motivational speaking. Sometimes it's literally that, telling a person, I know what it is to have social anxiety. I know, because a lot of people don't know that. Like for me, suffering from chronic PTSD and then ADHD, anxiety, those are literally symptoms of that. And so when I go to cons, I spend a lot of times outside with the cosplayers, in the open, in the element, and just talking to people, getting to know them and stuff. And that actually brings down my anxiety and puts me in a space where I can. A lot of times when I first get to a con, I have so much anxiety going on that I can't, even though the photos may look good, but in my brain, they're not what I want. But then once that anxiety goes around, the calm, it starts to happen. And then I can go really get in my zone where I'm just like shooting. And the same thing goes, like, I have a lot of people either come find me, or I'll just do what I said before. Like, hey, I love your cosplay. My Hero Academia is one of my favorite animes. Would you like to photograph that? And usually that's the way I usually get meet new people and get new clients. If I see somebody walking by and I have downtime and stuff like that.
Yeah, you mentioned something that I actually do want to touch upon,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about the poses and all that stuff, and you doing the poses, and also the fact that you know your craft, and you also know the material, and how important is that? Because I hate to say this, but obviously, when you know what Darth Vader does, you know what My Hero Academia is, you know a certain anime, and we're going to dive into some of your shots in a second here and talk about it. But how important is that? Because if you don't know a character, it's kind of, I would imagine, hard to tell them how to pose. And you're the photographer, and they might know the character, but you're shooting it, if that makes sense. It's kind of like a director in a movie has to sort of know how the scene is supposed to go. They don't need to tell the person how to act, but they need to say, look, I need the lighting this damp, I need this over here. And so what is that like? Because you know a lot of Star Wars, you know a bunch of anime, you know a bunch of stormtroopers, preferably out in the winter and snow, which we're going to talk about. I like some of those shots. But what is that like? 'Cause I think that's a really important thing that photographers need to know is their subject matter.
So to me, that is not as important, knowing the actual content. Being able to put a person in a pose that is complementing to their body type, to them themselves, is the most important thing. Making a person feel comfortable, because if they don't feel comfortable, it's going to really show in the photos. So like I said, like photography, even though it's digital, to me it's still art. And so part posing a person in the right pose that is complementing to them, it is complementary to the person themselves, not just the character, but to make that person feel comfortable and empowered. Those are important things, because oftentimes, like when I go, like, anime is huge. There's, like, for everything we have in pop culture, there's an anime for it and then some. So there's a lot of times when I go to Anime Expo, there's tons of people. I just see a phenomenal cosplay, and I'll tell them, hey, tell me about this character. I was like, okay, what is their signature pose? What is that character's signature pose that you like? And they'll show me. I'm like, oh, great, let's do that. And so that's what happens for the character I don't. Now, like you said, comic books, DC, Marvel, everything that there's lots of stuff I know, but there's things I don't know. So it's important to have that synergy between you and the cosplayer to make them feel comfortable so that they can get into the pose. I think that's the most important element of posing the person. And also the other thing, what I said before, if you're going to ask the person to do it, be willing to recreate and show them, especially like in the cosplay community, there are a lot of people who are very socially awkward and very introverted and very shy. And so if you're just this overbearing runway photographer, who's just like this, you're going to shut people down. It's giving them that positive energy so they can actually recreate that in their photos.
Yeah, that's another interesting point you touched upon. And I like to call it ethics, and I
Mhm.
like to call it social skills as well. Where, I know plenty of stories from people where photographers cross lines, things happen just naturally. And what is that like for you to understand and even, be ethical? And as a photographer, you have to know your client. You have to also say, look, there's certain things that I'm not going to cross a line with
Mhm.
certain things. And the fact that you're not going to make somebody do a pose that you can't recreate unless they already did it and they're saying, hey, I know that you can't do this, but I can. So for instance, I can't do a split. But if I was a photographer and a cosplayer said, I can do a split, I'm not going to go recreate that pose for that, understandably. But I think obviously if they tell me they can do something, that's a little bit different versus saying, but getting to the heart of the question, what is that like for you? Because I think there is some problem in cosplay photography with that. And again, I could be completely wrong, but there's a somewhat, because I know I've heard stories that are horrible about ethics with photography and even editing and altering photos as well. And I think it's also a complicated issue.
Okay. So when it comes to ethics for me, where first I'll talk about the interaction, then I'll talk about the editing ethics and just my own take on actual ethics. Well, a lot of it, my photography skills and the way I am as a photographer, my foundation for that was me as a military leader and a healthcare professional. To be a consummate professional at all times. If I'm going to touch a person, if I say, because there's oftentimes like I'm a very affectionate person too, so I don't mind. So I don't have any problem with saying, hey, do you mind if I fix your hair? Or hey, I'm going to touch your elbow to get you right here, because sometimes you can tell a person, you can show a person, and it's not clicking. And I don't like to waste people's time either. I'm not one of those photographers who's going to sit there with one model for an hour and get all these shots. Like, no, I have ADHD. My brain It's like you got this small window. Let's get these shots in and get that person on so they can enjoy the rest of their con. And that's just me. I'm very cognizant of people's time. And so, like I said, a lot of it, because even in the military, I was a equal opportunity officer, where I actually gave classes on fraternization and how to treat and talk to your patients and things like, and ethics and work and ethos were a huge part of my career. And I believe in leading by example. And so if I'm going to work with a person, I definitely want to be professional at all times and constant communication with that person. If I'm going to do something or I want to tell them something, in concert, and also reading their language, having an ability to read whether they're uncomfortable or not. And I'll stop and ask, say, hey, are you okay? Have I done anything? Or and sometimes it's actually turned into a therapy session, which I'm okay with. I love helping people. I love talking to people. I've actually had a person like just this weekend at WonderCon, someone actually lost their dog that morning and they still came to the con. And I saw that and I was like, I talked to them and they were a couple and they were there, husband and wife and stuff. And she was really emotional. And I was just like, can I give you both a hug? Because I understand I grew up with lots of pets and I know how it feels to lose a pet. And I'm getting emotional right now just thinking about it. And we hugged, we cried together, and then we had the best photo shoot. It was great. We got to bond a little bit, and there's things like that. And when we talk about editing, so my preference of photography is photojournalism. And one thing that's why, because I shoot for San Diego Comic-Con, I shoot for Yoda's News and things. I like capturing the moment in time. And so when it does that, a lot of my editing is just correcting the light the way I want and making it as natural to what your eye can see. And that's one of the fun parts is manipulating light in order to make it look like what the human eye can see. So that's where most of my editing comes. Some of it comes to if the client itself wants me to soften the skin a little bit, little fine lines. But some photographers, what they do in cosplay world, what I consider is actually graphic design, where the person is completely softening, look like a comic book character, look like again, I have ADHD. Sometimes if the person is paying me, I will do some magical stuff, but it's not my preference. I like to do as much stuff like with natural lighting. I use like when I'm using smoke and effects and stuff, practical effects and lighting as much as possible to make the photo dramatic without having to change a background and put all these other effects. Is it fun sometimes? Yes, but it is very, 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 very time consuming. And it is not my preference. I hats off to those individuals who do it. I myself have hired other photographers to do that type of editing for me because I just don't have the patience for it. But yeah, and also too, I don't believe in changing people's bodies at all because even myself, for someone who's struggled with weight loss and weight gain and stuff like that, I know how it is. It's important for that person to feel beautiful where they are.
I think it's one of the biggest problems in cosplay, and I think it's gotten better. And I'm not a cosplayer. I've cosplayed twice at Anime Boston. I have a good time, but it's not my jam. I enjoy cosplay, but I'm not. I would like to be a spectator, not a participant. It's just who I am. But what I think has gotten better is I think there's been things like closet cosplays. I think comfort has been added into cosplay, and I also think that some of the, I guess, toxicity, for lack of a better word, that you have to be perfect. You have to have six-pack abs if you're a guy to be Superman, or you have to be skinny, to play this character has started and is really evaporated heavily. And I think the stigma, and I also think, and this is the part where we get controversial, I think COVID has been a net positive for cosplay overall. Obviously, if we had to do it all over, nobody would want COVID to happen. But I think it took a lot of power away from the upper echelon and it liberated and it ended a lot of gatekeeping, which I think helped to get toxicity out. And it also gave people opportunities. And it sounds like a weird thing to say. It's a controversial thing to say, but I think it's a good thing that
Mhm.
the upper echelon of cosplay, the top 50 cosplayers, do not have the pull that they used to have.
Mhm. And I believe a lot of it happened because people were in their homes. They started opening up with their experiences, and people stopped feeling so alone. Because a lot of what happens is a lot of times too, people would cosplay and they would go there and then they run into that one person that was like the bully they had in high school, and they shut down. They just run away from the cosplay community, or someone would come online. So many trolls that just hide behind computer screens, have no intestinal fortitude, and just go there and ridicule other people and make them feel ashamed of who they are. But the beauty of COVID, so many people were home and got to speak up. And then there's other people like myself and who were out there and say, hey, their opinion doesn't matter, because for every one troll, there are thousands of people here to tell you that you look awesome. They tell you that it doesn't matter what ethnicity you are. You like that character, you cosplay them with respect to who they are. No matter what race or ethnicity you are, no matter what body type you are, if you're handicapable in a wheelchair, or you may have downs, it doesn't matter. Cosplay is for everybody, no matter what body type, no matter how tall you are, no matter what shape you are, and that's the important thing. And I love that. I love that we're going away from that. More and more people are feeling comfortable. What I say to people is, when I say love yourself where you're at, so you can have fun where you're at, because if you're always thinking, I'm going to get there when I get this, you're not going to appreciate your struggle as much, because I've even done that to myself, because, I have goals. And so I literally, it helped me in the military. Like when I got a new uniform, if I start putting on weight, I'm not going to just tailor the uniform. No, I'm going to say, instead of tailoring that uniform, I'm going to go hit the gym, hit it hard until I can get back into that uniform and fit it the way I should. And I'm the same way with it is to certain cosplayers. Like, okay, if I'm going to do a shirtless cosplay, how I want to look good and feel good the way I am. I don't want to be comfortable. So I'm going to set an actual goal for myself and actually achieve that, instead of necessarily beating myself up, tearing myself down, and not actually going forth in that.
Yeah, I think people have forgotten that cosplay is supposed to be fun, and
Yes.
it's this new concept. I know it's so insightful, everybody. That cosplay is supposed to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, and I said it before, and I really believe this, that the upper echelon has been definitely elements of it have been torn down, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's been torn down on Instagram. It's been torn down at cons, and I think cosplay is going to be fun again. I really do. And I like when people mash up characters. I like seeing, Sakura, and I'm going to say this in every ethnicity. I like seeing a black Sakura. I like seeing an Asian Sakura. I like seeing a regular Sakura. I like seeing, people of all sizes doing it and having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's fun, and it's a representation of society. And I think that's nice versus, guess, one standard is a nice way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just how I feel. But again, I'm sure I'm going to get shellacked for that. But I'm okay with that. I'll take the L. I'll take the L. But
Understand.
I do want to talk about some of your photos, because they're very cool, before we get into some of your cosplays, and also talking about Disney. And I like this one a lot. And I think this is the same person.
Yes.
And I'm gonna get the name wrong, but I think it's Pink Luntak or Tack or
Yeah.
Lunatic.
I don't remember how to pronounce her handle, but that's Jen, one of my good friends, Jen.
She's like Pink Lunatic, maybe, I think is how it's pronounced.
Yeah.
So what's the story behind that? Because again, we talk about photojournalism, which is what you spoke about, and I'm gonna just show them again because they're really cool. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously the background's blurred out a little bit, which I think is edited or shot that way. And then this one is an action shot. And what is that like? Because it's kind of nice to see something not edited in any imagination or anything of that nature, and get that like kind of cool, crisp action shot.
So what's funny is that first photo that you showed was literally first Comic-Con. That was from 2015. That was my first Comic-Con. I was still relatively new. I had a 1.8 prime lens, so that's how I was able to shoot it in 1.8, get that little blurred effect and stuff like that. And I wasn't comfortable shooting with flash or anything like that, or nor did I know about the golden hour. I didn't know shadows, so that's why that photo was like that. And then I think that second photo was Long Beach at Comic Expo 2016. So I had about 7 months, 8 months in between that, and I actually started like using flash and shooting during sunsets and stuff like that. And the way I created that photo, the second image, to make it so hyper dynamic. First off, I believe in just the same thing, like from being medical or being an infantryman, you have to get down. Sometimes you got to get down there. You got to get down and dirty. And I was actually laying down on my back while she was over me. Because one, Jen is sweet as can be, but she's itty bitty. And so even if I, for me standing up, it can't really give her that powerful angle. So I got down and the sky was beautiful, and I put it at a higher aperture to open it up to bring in all the light and stuff like that. And that was like one of my first days actually using flash. And that's why you could see the difference between the two. And I love using lighting. And that's my thing, and all different elements, outdoor or whatever, because anybody can pick up an expensive camera and go in natural lighting and take good photos, because the camera is really doing the work. Even if you're on manual, the camera is still doing it. But to actually manipulate light in different elements, to use it to fill in those shadows and things like that, it takes a little bit of skill.
Again, I'm not a photographer, so my father is. He enjoys it as a hobby. He likes shooting wildlife, and he very, very enjoys it and is good at it. And he likes to go to Africa to shoot wildlife with the camera. With the camera, I want to make that crystal clear, everybody. When he's going on a safari, it's with the camera. Believe me, I've been in plenty of conversations where somebody's like, "My dad went on a safari," and they're like, "Your dad kills animals?" I'm like, "No, he's shooting them." And they're like, "So he's killing animals?" "No, with a photography, with a camera, guys."
You have no idea, because my military background, and I have so many college photography friends that are also military people, and so sometimes the lingo. Because I was out shooting. I was out shooting recently, and I was like, "Oh, you went to the range?" It's like, no, dude, I was on my camera. And so that actually comes up quite is quite. Me and my friends, we have a lot of laughs, because of we have sometimes specify. And even myself, when I'm making certain posts, if I wanted to reach a bigger, broad audience, I have to make sure that I use the right actual verbiage and lingo, and not always just go toward the short saying shooting. I'm actually photographed and things. Be cognizant of what verbiage I'm actually using for certain posts.
And then I do want to talk about another one, and I am not a League of Legends player, but I do like this one. And this is fun, and it's outside and it's snowing. And again, I'm probably gonna get this one wrong too. I think it's Hibby Queen.
Yes.
High P Queen is how it might be pronounced. I want to give credit where credit's due. But I am not a League of Legends player, but I know this is not a league, I think. And it's a very, very fun cosplay, shooting outside. I think there's snow on the ground. So what is this like? Because it's kind of nice when the background, Mother Nature gives you the background.
Yeah. So this was a very fun shoot. Initially, I wasn't even supposed to be shooting. I had my Star Wars group, and we had decided, hey, let's go up to the mountains and do, because we literally, it was right after The Force Awakens that came out. So I had my friend was in Kylo Ren, my friend Dawn was in Kylo Ren, and my other friend Lisa that was in Rey. And then coincidentally, one of my friend, mentor photographer, James Rolston, said, hey, we plan on going up this weekend to do some snow shoots. You want to be Finn? And I was just like, yeah. He had his own little group of cosplayers that wanted to shoot him in the snow. So we just all formed this big group, and we just took turns. And I was like, if I'm going up there, bring my camera and stuff. And then we found a place to shoot where it was away from the traffic and stuff like that. And we just had a lot of fun. And it was kind of cold, like with the cut. If you're ever, just telling people, if you're ever doing a snowshoe like this, make sure you tell the models, cosplayers, to prepare. Bring layers, bring robes, something warm, that when they're not, especially if it's a group, when you're not getting photographed, sit in the car. If you're not too far from the car, like some people hike very far. I try to be, it looks like I'm out in nature, but actually there's a road like 5 feet or 5, 10 away. Because being in the military and doing tours in Afghanistan and doing cold weather training, that is not fun trying to hike with your expensive photography gear in the snow. So I try to make things as convenient as possible. But I always say, bring layers, sit in the car to your setup. You got your lighting, you do your testing, and then you bring the models out and you shoot fast, and you care about that person. You don't want anybody getting hypothermic. You don't want them going down. You get your shots, let them warm up, put them back in there, and then you get more shots. And that's actually what we're doing between. I think it was maybe 3 of us photographers that day. And I was going back and forth. Like when I wasn't shooting, they were shooting me and Finn and stuff like that with Kylo Ren. And then when they were photographers done with me, then I would go shoot some other cosplayers and stuff like that. So
it's crazy. It's crazy, but you got to just keep rotating.
Yeah.
And then I definitely, we're gonna dive into some Star Wars stuff in a second, but I am a big Lara Croft fan, and I think this is, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is Megan Golden.
Yes.
And so obviously, I mean, it's Lara Croft. Who doesn't love Lara Croft, Tomb Raider? I mean, it's just absolutely fantastic. I'm a big fan of Lara Croft. I love Angelina Jolie in it. I thought the new one was good too, and the comics are just fantastic. So, what was this like? Because it's an iconic, I guess, series. It's an iconic character. Everybody knows who Lara Croft is, and I think Megan Golden has like 40,000 Instagram followers right now too. And so, what is that like for you as well? Because you shot some pretty high people who have a big following on Instagram. You shot people who have like no following on Instagram.
Yeah. So for me, it's like, that's what I say. It's a blessing because it's as simple as they're a person. Like, because me in the military, I've worked with, treated as patients, generals, 4-star generals, 3-star generals, sergeant majors, high ranking people, war veterans, people who have been through here. And the best thing is to treat them like people. If some, like just some admirals, some generals, you're a peasant to them. And that may happen, but unfortunately for me, I've never had that experience within the cosplay world. Is some have been like, "Hey, I'm on the way for another," some high following cosplayers and stuff, the high visible cosplayers I've had, like, "Hey, you mind if we do a shoot?" They're usually really sweet, like, "Oh, I'm either on a break or right now I have to go to a panel and stuff like that. You know what? Here, take my cell phone number down." And text me so I can text you when I'm free, and then we'll meet up later. And that's actually what happened with Megan. I think we added each other on Facebook, and then that was the end of the day. I was ready to leave, and she had hit me up, and I was like, yay! And so, we walked outside, and I didn't know what to do because there was no sun. I nothing, and I literally had a light went off. There's a light right there. I put her under one of the lights at Long Beach. The convention center was just right there, shine on her beautifully. I opened up the ISO and I took that shot. And also too, the fact that you're putting up my newer work, my old work, I should say, from when I was a new photographer. That actually means a lot to me, that those photos still hold up over time.
Yeah, and then there's a few more I want to touch upon. Obviously, Cinderella. I love this. I love this one. Like I really want just a print of this. I really do. I want a big poster of this, to be honest. Yeah. It's a great cosplay. I believe it's Kate Like Cereal. Is the cosplayer's name, which is a fucking awesome name. It's an awesome awesome name
Uh,
for a cosplayer. But I know you didn't have a part in the naming, but you definitely made this shot work in so many ways. In so many ways. So what is this like? Because this is, I think, like the shot that everybody knows. Right?
yeah.
It has to be. Because you see it, it creates instant, everybody has a memory with this shot.
The memory and the stories behind this photo shoot is just hysterical. So it was four of my friends. It was oh my god, Lindsay, Katie, Kat, and they're all dressed as Disney princesses. And a couple of them I just met that day, and some of them I've known for since I got into cosplay and stuff like that. And we decided, hey, my other friend Robert Torres, one of the guys who actually talked me into becoming a photographer, he was like, you know, we're gonna go to Balboa Park and we're gonna do a shoot. Well, we didn't realize that it was the 100th anniversary of the San Diego Zoo. So there were hundreds of kids in Balboa Park that day because literally the Balboa Park and the San Diego Zoo are neighbor. So it was just flooded. We couldn't go more than 5 inches without having a swarm of kids asking them. So it took so much patience for me and Robert that day to just be like, okay, because you know they're in princess mode and there's the kids and who can say no, or like we want to get our shots and get done. So a shoot that was only supposed to be, you know, at 2 hours at the most, ended up going all the way until well after the sun went down. And it actually challenged my skills because, you know, like actually, because I didn't have full strobes like I did. I just had one speed light and stuff that I had to put in certain angle to make sure I'm getting this. And there was no sun. So as you saw, some of the stuff in the same day was like completely pitch black in the daytime. So I had a couple other speed lights. I take that back. I used some of the gel lighting to do it. But that was really fun because all of the ladies that were on that shoot with me, they completely embody being when they're in the characters that they cosplay. They're phenomenal people, phenomenal human beings, and so it was a really easy shoot as far as like poses because literally it was one of those some cosplayers I have to direct. Some other ones I can just sit there and just click, click. They'll know, just go boom, 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 boom. And it's just like, it's fun. But it's amazing to see them go into character, you know. And look, it'll be funny because they'll just go do that pose and then actually know we got four kids right there asking to take photos. So I have to stop what I'm doing, just pout a little bit off to the side and just like, oh, sir, go ahead and take her. So that was a really, really fun day. I actually tell that story all the time because it took so much patience for me because I just wanted to finish the shoot. I just wanted to get my shots. I was like, you know what? I understand because even when I'm in cosplay or I'm at an event and stuff, and there's photographers that want to take photos of me, and then I got kids or people, fans coming up that want to take photos. So I never say no, and so I understood. So it definitely tested my patience, and I've grown a lot since then.
And then on the not Star Wars stuff, there's this little cosplayer, and hopefully you know this person's name. I think they're a small time person too. On that one, it's so confusing. They wouldn't have like 500,000 followers on Instagram. I mean, that would be preposterous, right?
And again, this is one of those cool moments. I think this was my first anime expo, and that was when I first started shooting with multiple lights and different lighting and stuff. And this was a lighting setup that oh man, I remember the photographer who inspired me with this type of light. And this was actually by accident. I put the wrong setting on, and all of a sudden, because right there, that's in the middle of the day in a hallway that is completely lit up. And I had put the lighting, I took two lights, put it like that, and I shot it, the test light, and all of a sudden the background was gone. There was nobody behind it. It was just like, it was completely, and I was blown away. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so I started shooting, and she was the one, and I felt like it was her energy again. What's funny is I met her that day. And she was so nice because she was shooting somebody else. I asked her and said, "Hey, I didn't even know her cosplay." And I just asked, Kate, can I introduced myself and I said, "Hey, she was nice and sweet." We took our shots, and then when I finally started following her on Instagram and Facebook, I was like, "Oh my God, she is a huge following." And stuff. And it was even crazy because I don't even think she was, above 100K at the time. She had like back then in 2015, 2016, it was like just to have 20, 30,000 followers was huge. But then now watch that she has like almost, 500,000 to 600,000 followers and stuff. It's pretty amazing, you know.
Yeah, and this goes back to what I was saying before, is that you have shot a variety of people, and it's so interesting. I mean, it's the weirdest thing. I just ask people for interviews, and you don't know who's going to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
I just had the voice actor Rock Lee on my show,
Mm-hmm.
and a few months ago, and I just asked. I said, "Hey, I'm super swamped right now, but how about you hit me up at the beginning of February?" And guess what I did? I followed up. And people, when they say, "Hey, circle back to me," circle back,
Mm-hmm.
and circle back when they expect you to, and it works. So that's all I'm going to say. That's my advice.
That is the same mentality I've always had with real estate. Like literally, like you sometimes, because you may not catch a person like they're interested in selling a home in the future or buying a home in the future, but they may not be ready right then and there. But then you follow back up with them and they're like, "Hey, you know what? I was looking for agents because we're about to get, stationed somewhere else. So we're thinking about leaving California. So, hey, you caught me at a great time." It's all about the follow up and the honesty too, because usually when you make a good first impression, and then you follow up with your word, then that actually leaves a lasting impression.
Yeah, it's so important to follow up with people. I mean, I just got a client, and I don't want to get into the details of it for advertising, but it's so interesting because I wished him, and we were talking about his other Kickstarter about maybe 6, 7 weeks ago, and I guess I was on his radar, and I wasn't even looking for business. I was saying, "Hey, man, I can't help you out now for an interview, but obviously just keep me in your mind." And there you go. Things happen for a reason, but I do want to talk about Star Wars really quickly on what you've shot. Obviously, we have this right here, which is Rey. Um, I think that's Lost Weasley Child, maybe.
Mm.
Great, great cosplay name. Great cosplay name. And again, I think that's from the same shoot, right? It has to be, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a few other things that I want to talk about. This right here, some I guess sexy mercs is a lack of a better word. Um, Also very cool. The tag's in there, so this is official 501 first, guys. Is there too. And there's a few others. There's a few others like this one.
Mm.
This is awesome. This is awesome. This is Disney Pocahontas meets like the Mandalorian Boba Fett. And then there's this one too.
Ah. Yeah, that was actually the last time I did a cosplay snow shoot. That was right before the pandemic. That was in January of 2020. And that was with Becca. Oh my God, Becca Soka Cosplay, and she had forever. So it was funny because that was inspired from the micro series, the Clone Wars that had when Padme was in the snow with Yoda and had the but like I always call it the snow bunny suit because that's what it reminded me of. And she loves cosplaying Padme, and she has a lot of Rebel Legion cosplays of Padme. So when her first Merc armor that she did was mashed up between Padme, and it was that actual inspired, and I loved it. And the fact that I was just like, because for years I slept on the micro series because I initially didn't like the artwork because I was very like when I was in the comic books, like Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, Dan Fraga, I liked really aggressive style. Even in my anime, I usually like more the CGI stuff. So when I saw the Micro series, I was put off by it. But then when I actually watched it, I was like, oh my god, this is so awesome. You know, pretty much now the Jedi are like superheroes in it, and so I really liked it. And so when I saw her do that armor, I was like, we have to do a snowshoe. I told her, I was like, we have to do it, and she was so excited about doing it, and we did it. And then like shooting with Becca is awesome. We miss shooting forever. It's crazy too. Is Becca's also a brilliant photographer, and you know, we've done shoots together and things. She's actually shot me as a photographer as well in my Captain America and stuff. And she's done some really, really good photography work and stuff. And so for her to, you know, be a good cosplayer she is, and then to trust me, you know, as her photographer means a lot.
Yeah, and this is, I think, your Captain America as well.
That shot she took right there. That one right there is one that Becca took.
And so obviously, I mean, you're a cosplayer too. And so what is that like going into that, where obviously you've done the Star Wars stuff and, you know, we're going to dive into that. You've done Finn, you've done some Stormtroopers, you've done Vader, you've done some, you know, Sandstorm, Mando stuff that you don't have a name for, tactical SWAT Mandalorian is what I like to call it.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great. I'm going to show it in a second, but what is this like that you are a cosplayer, you're a photographer, and then you also shoot, you know, cosplayers who do photography as well? Because again, we go back to understanding it, because I know a lot of photographers who have never cosplayed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a strong believer, at least in what I do, and I teach certain things, I teach comic book investing, that I will never advise somebody something that I won't do. Because
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that if I won't do it, so if I won't knock on a door to sell something, I should not tell somebody else to do that. And I think it's a real advantage if you're a cosplayer and then you're also a photographer, because you understand both sides of it and you understand what it's like to be shot
Mm-hmm.
with a camera, and it also knows what it feels like to do, you know, the photography element and shooting with a camera, your subject.
And like a lot of it again, a lot of my photography skills have come from things that I learned in the military, especially being in the medical field. Like I started I've had lots of injuries, pretty severe injuries, and had surgeries early on in my military career that plagued me to this day. And so for me as a patient, it's always me putting as every time I saw a patient, I would put myself in their shoes, you know, and therefore actually be able to connect. And so the same thing goes when it comes to doing photography. I know what it's like to be in a stormtrooper armor, sitting in the hot sun, waiting. Just I don't even give a damn about it. I just want to hurry up and get this done, you know. And so I understand. That's why, like when you see the huge group shoots that I do with the Star Wars community, or even like anytime I do those, I do them quickly. I don't. It's not sloppy. I do command and control. I want everything organized because I don't want any casualties. I don't want anybody standing there for too long to pass out. I don't want people. I know how frustrating it can get, literally in those big old groups, and you're just sitting there saying, "Can you please just shake the shot?" I don't want anybody to have a bad memory from a photo shoot because I took too long setting it up. I tell everybody stand out my way. I have helpers, people sometimes to push other photographers back, because the bigger the group, the bigger the amount of people that want to take the shot. But it's important to do cross, and a lot of that too. Also, again, being in emergency medicine and even being in combat medicine, it's the same type of thing. Like if I need to treat a patient that's down, and I got all these looky loos, I have to be patient enough to care what's going on with my patient, and at the same time have command and control the whole entire situation, or get somebody that's like, hey, staff sergeant or police officer, get these people out the way. And the same thing, because sometimes it's like, and I usually deal with politeness. I even when I'm yelling, I still try to be nice at times.
Yeah, I could see that. I can absolutely understand that and see that. And also, you know what is, I've never been part of a group cosplay. I did it twice with one cosplay, so I really can't speak about that. But
How
I've
much
seen groups. When you have a group of 5 people, it's tough. When you have a group of 500 people, God help you. But I digress again. I am not in that shoe, so I really can't say anything. I just don't want that job. No offense. I'll
It's
let
just
you have it. You can have it.
a job.
But since we're on Star Wars, we might as well get into this. I heard that this had to do with Toys R Us.
Yes. It's funny enough. So that was, oh yeah, it was the release. It was like the it was a big Hasbro release when they actually did right before The Force Awakens, where they were gonna just release all the merch and stuff. So our Star Wars group had lined up outside of Toys R Us that evening and just literally, and we just interacted with the other Star Wars fans that were there waiting for the toys and stuff. And then I think it was PBS had showed up and stuff, and they recorded me shopping in my full Vader and stuff, and I was playing patty cake with the kids and stuff. So when I used to do Vader, I was more like Darth Helmet than I was actually Darth Vader. I'm just a big goofball and stuff, and I love interacting with the kids and making them laugh and just having fun being silly and stuff like that. So
Well, I'll say this, and hopefully you'll take it to heart. You're probably a better father than Vader was to Luke. But before you take the compliment, the bar isn't that high.
this I know. He definitely was not leading by example.
So I'm gonna say on that joke. I'm glad you took the joke well. I'm glad on that point. It's just terrible. It's just terrible. But let's talk about Finn because I have I have my own theories on Finn. I think he should have died in the first one, to be honest. I really think he should have died in the first one. I also didn't like that he wielded a lightsaber for a little bit. I was just like, it's a little bit of a stretch. A little bit of a stretch.
Okay, so the reason why that happened, there's a lot of things if you watch the deleted scenes with Maz Kanata, to be exact. She saw that he was a force sensitive, and that was a direction we all believe that J.J. Abrams was going with it. It was they did a lot of misdirection, of course, where they with all the promo stuff, and we all felt like Finn was going to be the next hero Jedi of the new trilogy, but the focus was on Rey. And Finn was going to be the supporter who was also force sensitive. And unfortunately, I think the difference between Lucasfilm at the time and Marvel, whereas Kevin Feige literally says, hey, these are you guys you're the directors, but you have to hit these wicked points because the reference material, this is what the fans are going to want. Or
there's a good way to put it where Kevin Feige, I think is his name, right?
Feige, yes.
Feige scripts out a battle plan for the next 10 movies. So they have an overall story saying we are starting at point A and we need to get to point Z. And we have 10 movies to do it. And you can't kill Cap off in movie 3. He's got to make the movie 6, guys. If you want to make him do a stupid training gym video, we're cool with that. That's fine. Even if he's a criminal and he's basically encouraging exercise, we're cool with that. We're not going to tell a director not to do that. But you can't kill him off. You can't do certain things. And I think in Star Wars, in episode 7 to 8 to 9, they had no direction and they had no overall script.
Yeah.
And that's why Finn should have died in episodes.
Were the ones who were the ones pretty much writing it. And unfortunately, I feel like The Last Jedi was a good standalone movie, but it was too different from the Star Wars saga itself. That was the Skywalker saga. That's what 1 through 6 was all about. And that's what this one was supposed to be about. And I feel like that it sort of got off track when it came to, and like I said, literally Finn, they're building him up to be a Jedi, and they just took all that stuff and threw it out the window. But again, I like The Last Jedi, but I don't feel like they handle any of the supporting characters very well in The Last Jedi in comparison to what I think was originally envisioned. Because even then, when you get to the Rise of Skywalker, you know, Finn acts again, showing that he may have been force sensitive. Because if you think about it, right, what do we know about stormtroopers? They always miss. You tell me one scene when Finn was shooting, did he ever miss? Whether he was in a TIE fighter, whether he was on the rifle, whether he was in a blaster, he always hit his shots. And that's one thing you notice about Finn. He was very remarkable. He was accurate. The only time he didn't raise his blaster was on that killing innocent civilians on the one of the first scenes in The First Awakens. But other than that, he was pretty spot on, you know, as a character. And it's very dynamic. Even in the books, he was Phasma and General Huck's favorite. And they believed he was going to be a general. He was going to rise through the ranks from regular stormtrooper to actually being, because in all of his training he was superb. And even like in the, I can't remember the name of the book, but it's the one where it's like the origins of Finn, Rey, and Poe, and it was a sort of prequel book leading up to The Force Awakens. And they had, like, Finn was an amazing character and stuff, and I feel like we were all jaded as a community because the promos built every promo you saw of Finn was him holding a lightsaber, and you just knew he was going to be this.
We all knew why they did it, though. They wanted to sell a bunch of toys. They wanted to sell a bunch of Legos. They want this is about toys, Legos, video games, mugs, T-shirts, you name it. It was classic Transformers 1980s. That's what it was.
It was Star Wars. It was George Lucas himself who patented the whole thing of how we're gonna make money, merchandising. What they made fun of is Spaceballs because it was true. Spaceballs the movie.
But I look, I erase. I thought episode 7 was okay. Episode 8 was a disaster for me. And by we got the time to episode 9, I saw it, and me and my friends had a good time at it. But we were like, great. Now we could put these 3 movies behind us. And that was the end of that discussion. Usually when I go to the movies with my friends, we all disagree. And we usually grab Dunkin' Donuts after, and we have the most intense conversations in the car ride home. And everybody has a different opinion. And it's great because if we all have the same opinion, it wouldn't be good. When we all have the same opinion, it's the most awkward car ride ever because nobody talks. But since that was a great movie. Episode 8, when we saw, we all had the most awkward thing. We're like, this was stuck on a cruise ship. And not the fun way. But I'm not saying the graphics were great. I don't think anybody did anything wrong in acting-wise in those movies. I just thought they weren't good movies. They had no direction, in my opinion. Honestly, I wouldn't be opposed to having a complete reboot with Finn, Rey, and every single one of those characters, and just reshoot episodes 7, 8, and 9 with better stories. That's all I'm saying. I'll happily petition Disney for it. But I think yes. We got this one right here of you. Got that one right there. We got this one right here. But I do want to talk about this one. I call this the SWAT Mandalorian. And, you know, maybe that'll offend some people, and it's all right. But I do like this one because it's a nice take and a nice change up of the traditional Mandalorian, the Mercs, and Boba Fett and all those guys, where it's got more of a sandstorm and a sand trooper feel to it. It's got more of, I guess, we're going to kind of go in there and we're doing some tactical operations, and it's kind of ground to pound. It's more militaristic, I feel.
Yeah.
Not saying Boba Fett's not militaristic, but like this is more like we got to get in and out. And this is almost like Boba Fett taking out a whole like clone group, which he does by himself, apparently. Like, there's a reason why he's Vader's favorite. There's a reason why. All the bad shit that's happened in Star Wars, Boba Fett's been a part of it. All of it. Some way or somehow, Boba Fett's made a fuck ton of money doing it, and it's been a part of it. And apparently he's happily retired now. So, who knew?
Yeah. So what's funny enough, that actually goes all the way back to when I was first stationed at Paris Island Marine Corps, a boot camp and stuff. And me and my friend Steve Little had always like imagined, what if we had like Star Wars armor? And we talked about it for years. And then I saw that that's actually the armor that I use is actually airsoft armor, but it looks a lot similar to Mandalorian armor with the gauntlets and the shoulder armor and then the chest. And I hit up my friend Ryan to actually, who's Planet Camino, that's his prop shop, to have him make me a helmet. So that's actually my rifle and my military camis, my Type 3 Navy camis that I actually wore with that. And then I put my scarf on and stuff that I actually wore in Afghanistan and stuff. And I just took it, went to the range and stuff like that, and just had fun with it. And I still have a lot of fun with that one. I actually did an all black version as well.
Now, I like it. I love it. I think it's great. And obviously, I would not be saying it's swap Mandalorian militaristic if I didn't like it. I definitely think that it is a very, very good interpretation, and it's a fun interpretation, and it mixes it up. And I feel like this is what, when you're part of 501 in Star Wars, unfortunately, I think too many people try to copy and they don't try to mix up and almost create like a pink Mandalorian, right? Because I have somebody that I know, and we're not on good terms right now, but that's okay. She did a pink Mandalorian, and it's fun, and that's what I feel Star Wars is supposed to be. And if we all did the same stuff in Star Wars, it would get boring if you had 500 of the same stormtroopers.
Yeah, yeah. And what's cool about the 501st and Rebel Legion, all the Star Wars clubs that do it for charity, and that's what it is, because we have to have a costume standard because we're representative of Lucasfilm. They don't have to let it allow us, but George Lucas loved the fact that we were doing what we're doing, so he sanctioned it. And then luckily, when the torch passes Disney, they honored that tradition as well. And so there are within the legions and stuff, there are other purists and stuff with people who just can't see about doing mashup. There's people like me. There's lots of, even if you look at one of the big Star Wars shoot that I just did this weekend, there was a lot of people. There were Rainbow Mandalorians. My friend who's in actual, like, oh my God, I can't remember Marshmallow Man, Scout Trooper, and then the big mouse head, Tusken Raider. There's all sorts of different mashups, and there's always so much.
A Marshmallow Mandalorian sounds freaking hilarious. It really does.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome. I'll make sure I'll show you some of the photos and stuff like that. It was actually a Marshmallow Scout Trooper.
That's pretty fun. That's pretty fun.
Yeah.
But I do want to back out of Star Wars, and I do want to talk. Obviously, I showed this is, I think, Sam Wilson, Captain America. Yeah. I think this is also that, and that's cool. And I think this is obviously more traditional Captain America.
That is Infinity War version of Steve Rogers.
And so obviously, what is that like? Because these are two different versions of Captain America. Obviously, one of them is Falcon that turns into Captain America. And, Anthony Mackie is just great. He's just great at everything he does. Obviously, Chris Evans is fantastic at what he does. And the entire first 20 films in the Marvel universe were awesome. 90% of them were great. And so what was that like to really get to embody that and do both of these versions?
So for me, like, for a long time, as you probably follow my cosplay career, everything for me was about Star Wars. Everything Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars. But growing up, I loved everything, and I still did. And after having that car accident in 2021 where I lost my wife, it was like I no longer wanted to put myself in a box. I wanted to cosplay every single character that I liked, and that was my goal. Like, if I liked the character even a little bit and I can see myself in that character, I wanted to cosplay it. And actually, because I did a couple here and there, I did Nick Fury, but it wasn't very many non-Star Wars related cosplays. And so I felt, with my military background, and I was definitely in the Navy, and the Marine Corps, the core values are honor, courage, and commitment. And Captain America to me was always someone who stood for, his ethics, and him as a hero were very high. And also too, I kind of like, it bothers me a little bit that from the comics and the cartoons, Falcon was a genius, smarter than Tony Stark actually, and they didn't put that in the movies. He's still an awesome character, don't get me wrong, but
On your left.
yeah, Falcon in the comics is a much more interesting character, and he's way younger. He was only 17 when he came to the Avengers and stuff, but yet he was just like Peter Parker, genius level, tech genius and stuff like that. And it was who's working for Shield as a teenager who ended up going to the Avengers. And so I've always been a huge Sam Wilson fan, and to put on that as Captain America is really fun for me, especially me being a prior service member and stuff like that. And so that's actually one of the first ones. And then it just took off. I don't even know how many Marvel and DC cosplays I have now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've done 2099 Miles Morales, and I have an Ultimate Fallout 4. I have 2 of them, first editions. They're very, very expensive books, very cool. Nobody knew who he was until 2018.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just the fact of the issue, is that in 2018, Miles Morales became relevant in the entire pop culture space, because Into the Spider-Verse is a brilliant movie. It's brilliant. It's so good on so many levels. And I like the fact that he's glitching at the start of that movie. And as he gains more and more experience, he gets less and less glitchy in his animation. It's a brilliant movie from start to finish.
It is.
But what was that like? Because that changed, I think, Marvel in a lot of ways. I think it actually evolved Marvel. And it was because Sony owned Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And they're never giving it up. They're never giving it up. I promise you that, everybody. I will put my life on the line. It will be a whole day in hell if Sony gives up Spider-Man. And they don't care about the movies. They care about the exclusive PS5 stuff and PS6 and PS7. That's what they care about. But getting back to the question, what was it like to do that cosplay? Because it's a very, very, very recognizable character, and I don't know much about 2099.
Mm-hmm. So it's funny enough, I actually have that suit too, the 2099. So I have multiple versions of Miles. I have the movie version. I do both the when he had the sweats and the jacket and stuff on it. Then I do just out of the suit, and I have the PS5 version, and I have the 2099 version of his action suit and in his regular suit, the one with the hood and stuff. I have those two, and it's a lot of fun because everybody loves Spider-Man. Spider-Man was my first superhero. When I was little watching Spider-Man and Friends, that was the first, cartoon of a superhero I had because, Superman, I hadn't seen Superman yet, although Superman was out, the movie, but it was just, I could relate. And I know when I first started collecting comic books, Spider-Man was my go-to. And then eventually, I think when I became a teenager, then I discovered X-Men and then everything with Wolverine, because I was just like, I used to be short. I was the run for a long time, and I didn't actually hit my growth spurt until I joined the military. And so Wolverine, this 5'3", 300-pound, just beast of a person who's fearless, because I was the exact opposite, except for the short part. I was scared of my own shadow. I was bullied all the time. Was in the middle of growing up in South Central LA in the 90s and the 80s, where gang violence was on its highest and stuff. And then, it's funny enough, I wouldn't say I was scared of everything, because I often got beat up for sticking up for other people too. But at the same time, I had enough of my own bullying and attention as well. But it was like Wolverine was still my favorite character. But favorite childhood when I was younger was Spider-Man, and then eventually evolved into Wolverine. And still is that I even got Wolverine tattooed on my forearm. So yeah.
Yeah, see, I'm a DC kid. It's
Uh,
like, and I didn't get into comics until
mm,
I was in high school. So when I was
mm,
16, 17, I really got into comics, and I was a manga kid too, where I was like
mm,
reading manga and anime. And then what was across from the manga, I was graphic novels, and I was into Teen Titans, and I was
mm.
into like the good stuff with like Jeff Johns writing it, which
Yeah.
is great. But obviously, I like Spider-Man now too, and I've spent good money on some Spider-Man books. Some
Mhm.
serious good money on it. It's a problem. Um, but yeah, no, I think Spider-Man in a lot of ways is kind of the everyday hero. And that's why Spider-Man is so relatable, because it's a kid growing up in Queens. He doesn't know
Mhm.
his parents, in a lower middle class family, who basically gets superpowers and was raised well. And there you go. And they're just trying to figure things out. And so who doesn't want to root for Peter Parker in life?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely was crazy. So I liked, don't get me wrong, like still to this day, like DC has always been more say the cartoons for me and some of the movies here and there. Love there's not a DC cartoon I've ever seen that I don't like. It was funny. I love the Titans. I love the Titans, but a lot of nerds hate it when I say that. But my friend, my goofball, my favorite incantation of Teen Titans is Teen Titans Go. Because I didn't get into Teen Titans until my son was born. And when he was a newborn, I was looking for stuff on. I downloaded the Cartoon Network app. I was like, "What can we watch together when I'm nursing him and stuff?" And I just fell in love with Teen. To me and him, still to this day, will watch like just go off like a few hours watching episodes of Teen Titans and stuff. And then thank God for HBO Max, because there was a lot of shows that like young us I didn't even know about until I got HBO Max and stuff. And so I've watched all the stuff. And then I definitely want to do a Nightwing. Eventually on my list to do a Nightwing cosplay. I definitely want to do a Cyborg. And I'm probably going to, like, if I do Cyborg, I'm more than likely going to voice the cartoon version of Cyborg. Because even like when I'm doing Bane cosplay, I do the Harley Quinn show version of Bane because that's my favorite one.
I love Bane. I was fortunate enough to interview Chuck Dixon, who co-created Bane.
Oh, no,
Very cool interview. Very cool interview.
that's awesome.
I have a long lineage of DC. I got to interview Denny O'Neil, who was the editor before he passed away. Very cool interview. Um,
Yeah.
Denny and Chuck are politically opposites, and they were in an era where that didn't affect anything. And it actually made a better book because it was the best talent creating Nightfall. And Nightfall is one of the greatest comic books of all time. It's I think like 40 to 45 issues, and it's brilliant. It's so good. But I love Azrael. I love Azrael. I mean, I would love to write Azrael for DC. I have 12 issues planned for Azrael. It'd be a blast. It'd be a blast.
Yeah.
But I digress. I digress. So if DC's listening, I'll do it for free. Um, just pay for the art. Give me my comps. Let me have a variant, and I'll be thrilled. I'll be thrilled to write it for free. 12 issues, drop in the bucket, and we'll sell millions. We'll sell millions. But anyway, I digress right there. I do want to talk about two more.
Okay.
And this one's controversial because this movie was not easy. This movie was not easy. It was not easy. I'm just letting you know that I had a great time seeing it. It was a rough one, man. It was a rough one, but your cosplay is great on it. It was just a rough movie. You don't have to answer, by the way, any
Okay.
question on that.
I enjoyed the movie again because it's like, all right, so I try to tell people like when they say it's too much of the comedy, it's like when I think of honestly, when I think of like like I feel like Marvel has a better pulse on reality when it comes because I think of superhero teams, I think of the military, top tier operators, things like that. And FBI, CIA, and I've worked with all. I've worked with Navy SEALs, Delta guys, Rangers, Marine Corps infantry, FBI, like I said, FBI already, CIA. I've worked with all, even like foreign military, and we are a bunch of nutbags. The jokes would never stop. Not we could be getting bombed, RPG'd, shot at, and dudes are still busting jokes. And it's in these ingrained memories. It's funny because my traumas. That's why I can laugh at anything. Even in the most traumatic, life-threatening situations, like I've been in times when I'm treating a patient who's dying on me, and one of my Marines will just say the most awful thing, and I'm like, dude, come on. And that's why it's like when the comedy that sometimes is in Marvel movies, it doesn't bother me. It actually brings to it because I feel it's more realistic and stuff. And and some of it is over the top. But again, admitting that Teen Titans Go is my favorite, it just speaks to my personality. I love to laugh. Actually, every single day, as my therapy, I force myself to laugh. And that's why when you see my stories, I like to share my laughter too. I post some of the most outlandishly funny, dark things and stuff. And so it was different. It was definitely very, very different. It seemed like it was Ragnarok and they just took it to another level. Ragnarok was a perfect amount of comedy. And then Love and Thunder was more of a comedy movie with superhero elements to it. But I still
I had a very different reaction. I was like, there were things in there that should not have been in there. I was not a fan of the God scene in that entire thing. I thought that was a little too much. Where what they were suggesting, considering it was a Disney Marvel movie, I think they took a step too far in that. I think they could have toned that down. I also think that, to me, the villain didn't seem like he had a real cause. He wanted to heal his daughter and save her from the curse of all this God stuff. And I get it, but like it didn't seem enough of an impetus. And then I was just like, really, like we're gonna kill Jane Foster and not get Lady Thor? Like this was an opportunity. I mean, female Thor, Lady Thor was great in the comics. And I'm like, we're really not gonna spin this thing off. Like, and I just thought it was a missed opportunity. I really did.
So here's the thing. Like the fact that she was in an end credit scene in Valhalla, and it showed oh my god, Heimdall. I was like, okay, because this is one thing I've always said. If you in make believe, you're never dead. Period. Until the story is over and they'll never do it again. Period. Because look at Darth Maul. He got cut in half and sent down an air chamber. The fans are like, bring it back, bring it back. And so George Lucas finally said, okay, bring it back.
But you get killed again.
And I believe like when it comes to, I feel like they had more in store definitely had more in store for Jane Foster in the future.
Yeah, I just it didn't do it for me. It didn't do it for me. The one before did it for me. Ant-Man, the latest one, that did it for me. Black Panther did it for me. Black Panther 2 was not as good as Black Panther, but it wasn't bad. I mean, Guardians 2 was great. Guardians 1 was great. I don't know what else I've seen. I haven't seen a few of them. I haven't seen. But like that movie, I just can't. Like I was just like, okay. Like I went to see it. It was enjoyable. It wasn't a waste of the $15 I spent on the movie. But I was like, that was rough. That was rough for me. And because I was just like, cool, great. Just like I felt there was no story. Like it didn't capture me in. There wasn't a crisis that like drove me. Like in Black Panther 2, there was a crisis that they needed to deal with. And Ant-Man, there was a crisis they had to deal with. And that's King and dealing with that. And I don't know King right here, guys. But like that's my whole thing is with that movie is that there was no real crisis. It's that somebody wants to save their daughter from dying. And then they're willing to blow up the entire world. And I just thought it was like a cheap Thanos.
It seems like all of the villains are. a Thanos. Now everything is like Kane is on a whole nother level of villainry, like a whole nother level of way worse than Thanos, because Thanos, so only his whole goal in his universe literally was to just take care. But as we saw from What If, there's multiple variations of Thanos that didn't have the same objective. Whereas Kane, most of the Kings just want chaos and the rule. That's all of them. And that is a problem and that they haven't. So we can go on for hours about talking about the King Dynasty that's coming up.
I'm not like, I know very little about Marvel.
Okay.
I know very little about Marvel. I know a lot more about DC, but I am way more into independent comics right now. I find that, the state of Marvel, just in general, and the state of DC, I feel that we have lost storytelling in comics lately. I really, really believe that. And if you look at what they're doing, and it's not a woke issue, it's not that. I just think writers have gotten lazy and they've gotten a little too comfortable. And I think that DC and Marvel need to say, if you produce a bad book, you're fired. Because I think I hate to create and make this idea of leading by fear, but you need to give a reason to produce a good product.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a real issue with comics and I think it goes back to editing too. All the good editors in Marvel and DC are now elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem, is that I think DC and Marvel need to go out and hire a bunch of good editors to cultivate a bunch of good writers. I don't think it's just the writing. I think it's the idea that there you go. And then when these companies then became publicly traded companies, there you go. When Marvel went to Disney and DC went to AT&T and then Warner Brothers Discovery, there you go. That's the thing, shareholder values, and then they become IP farms. But I digress because I do like to say the word motherfucker, and this is a very important word for my next cosplay. Brilliant anime in so many ways. And what was this like? Because this is the one I want to end on, because I think it's the best one to end on.
Crazy. This is even though I've been watching anime my whole entire life, this was my first anime cosplay. And I always said, if I'm going to do anime, it has to be something incredibly meaningful for me. And it was like for me, it was like being in Finn. Like, there's nothing like, because me being Black growing up, there wasn't a lot of characters that looked like me growing up. And so whenever I was in Finn and I see all the little Black kids, they would just come around me, and just the reaction that they get. And also too, a lot of people love Finn as a character. So it was a cool character to embrace. But one, I've been Samuel L. Jackson fan since, oh my God, the Spike Lee movie, Do the Right Thing. So I've been a fan of Samuel L. Jackson for years, my whole entire life almost. And so when I found out, that actual he voiced the character in it, and I was like, I gotta do this. It was like I watched it, I played the game and stuff, and for years I've been saying it. Finally, I think it was Anime Expo a couple years ago after the pandemic, I finally decided I'm gonna go ahead and do this cosplay and stuff. And then it was so much fun. And for it to be an old anime, it was very, very well received at every convention I've gone to. And I was like really ecstatic. Like literally, like I was getting mobbed for photos and stuff. And I was just like, I was really, really happy. And it was very simple cosplay. It's very simple cosplay and stuff, but it's that the character impacted so many people and stuff. And I was glad I wasn't around for when that anime came out, because it did get a lot of like hatred, because a lot of people couldn't understand the depth of it and stuff. They actually, they had, so I read about a lot of things that went on the movement during the comic when that, the series came out and the movie actually came out. But again, to me, it's one of my favorite animes that I've ever watched.
No, I loved it. I love it. I have it in the special edition DVD, which is cool. That's a really fun thing. I got that one at Best Buy half off, which was awesome. I also have it in Blu-ray. I have the movie in Blu-ray, and it's a brilliant, brilliant series. And I like the fact that it's only 5 episodes, and the movie's only 2 hours.
Mhm.
So really, it's 10 episodes if you look at it, and
Mhm.
it's not that hard to watch it
No,
night. And that's what's kind of nice about it is that. And
hip
then
hop too.
what would you say?
I love the hip hop element in it too.
It didn't RZA do the score from Wu
Ye-
Tang Clan?
Yes.
So that's the other thing too is that if you're a fan of Wu Tang and you're a fan of RZA, and RZA's done some other scores, but definitely it was a lot
Bill.
of money was popped into it.
Yeah. It was amazing. Like, so me, I'm a huge Wu Tang guy. Like, huge. Method Man is my all time favorite hip hop artist. But Wu Tang, and because of my ADHD, I don't remember a lot of songs because music, I tune out and I do my deepest thinking when music's on. So a lot of times I don't actually remember lyrics of even songs that I've heard hundreds of times. But any Wu Tang from 36 Chambers, or second, third album, all Method Man, RZA, Jizza, Raekwon, Ghostface, like they actually imprint on my brain, and I can just sing along and stuff like that. I've been a huge Wu Tang fan. RZA is a genius, you know.
Yeah, see, I don't know much about Wu Tang, but I do know the Afro Samurai soundtrack. I have it on my freaking iPhone, which is awesome
Uh-huh.
because I liked it and it was great. And why wouldn't I buy it? I mean, I like to buy music that I listen to. I
Yeah.
am not a fan of Spotify because I want ownership versus a custodialship. There's a big difference because what I find is I listen to the same stuff over and over again anyway.
Mhm.
And so there you go. That's just my thought, but it's a great soundtrack in a lot of ways.
It is.
And
Definitely is.
so obviously, I mean, and I know I'm missing a bunch of your cosplays. I know you do a bunch of stuff, go to a bunch of Marvel premieres. I know there is a person who's responsible for that. This is her. So we could thank her. I did my homework, man. I don't know. I don't know. I did my homework with you. I know you better than most people. Going through all your Instagram, all that stuff, going through some deep dive on the internet, you know. So, because I know you do a bunch of Marvel stuff. I know you saw Black Panther 2, I think. I know you saw Avatar. I
Mhm.
know that you definitely saw Thor, Love and Thunder. I don't know if you've been to a Star Wars one yet.
I've been to every Star Wars premiere, with the exception of Rogue. No, yeah, Rogue One. Uh, so the Force Awakens, I was there for the Force Awakens, the Last Jedi, right?
Oh no, we lost him.
Sorry about that. My alarm went off. It's my son's bedtime. The Rise of Skywalker. Um, what else? I feel like Solo. I was at the premiere for Solo. I was also at the premiere. What was the recent one? Oh, The Mandalorian. I was at the red carpet for Mandalorian season 2 and for Andor. And so Mandalorian season 1. It was also the other one that I wasn't at. I wasn't at for Mandalorian season 1. I wasn't at that premiere.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
I've been very fortunate. Like I get invited and I don't say no. So yeah.
That's how I feel about interviews is that I ask and then somebody says, "Hey, can we do it in 3 weeks?" I'm like, "Yes." I just say yes and I hope for the best because it is going to get to a point and it's already starting to happen where I have to say no to a lot of things. A lot of opportunities come across my desk, and unfortunately, I have to say no to 90% of them. Now, as far as what I buy, how I buy it, what I buy for my businesses, and it's a great position to be in when you have to say no because there's so many choices. But if Marvel called me or DC called me and they're like, "Oh, want to come to one of these things," I would probably say yes. But I haven't got that phone call yet. It's fine. I don't expect it anytime soon. There's a reason why I built my own business instead. But I digress. I digress. I digress. You can take that all as resentment or not. No, it's really not. I'm happy to go to the movie 4 weeks later when it comes out and nobody's in the theater. And me and my friends and 4 other people are quietly enjoying the movie. Um,
That I live in even though I'm in Southern California, um, during the week is when so if I don't get to go to premiere, which luckily most of the movies that I see in the theaters are nerd movies, but if for some reason if it's a movie like DC, I haven't gone to any of the DC premieres or something like that. I usually just wait till Monday and it's already died down. Go to middle of the day, like noon on Monday when the theater opens, and I'll have the whole entire place to myself and stuff like that. And so, yeah, and it's a really nice theater too. I just live in a part of California where it's like the weekend people just only go to movies really on the weekends. I don't have to wait for like if I was in San Diego still, yeah, I would have to wait like 4 weeks before I can go see it and it be empty and stuff.
No. Me and my friends, we have a system. It works. It's pleasant and it's nice. And you know what is? It's easy. It's non-aggressive and it's calm. And that's how I like seeing my movies. Everybody, that's how I like seeing them. Or I'll just wait till it streams. Either or, it's fine.
Yeah.
But I digress. We've been talking for a while, and I do want to, talk about one more thing
Okay.
before I give you a chance to promote. Do you think we're gonna get a season 4 of The Mandalorian?
Season 4, I don't see why not. First off, I haven't watched today's episode, so I can't go there. But the thing about one of the things like Jay Filoni said, he was at before the season seven of Clone Wars. I was at the panel for at San Diego Comic-Con, and there's an infinite amount of possibilities when it comes to Star Wars. With even because he proved that him and George Lucas proved that with Clone Wars. Clone Wars was just that small amount of time, and they created so much amazing content. And with Star Wars, but put in the right hands, right directors and stuff, and the right storytellers, we can get amazing things like like Andor, like The Mandalorian, like Clone Wars, The Bad Batch, like Rebels and stuff. And so there's so much you can do. Like I used to be one of those people like I don't need prequels. I don't want the backstory. I just want to enjoy what I have and let's go forward. Sequels, everything. And then when I start like getting into Clone Wars, I'm like, I want back there. I want everything. I want every possible. I forgot like even with my comic books and stuff, I started like heavily X-Men in the middle of the X-Men. Like they were already around for 30, 40 years. So I had to go back and obsessively collect everything I can. So when I started watching movies the same way I was as a comic book reader starting off, then I started being able to enjoy everything a lot more. And I had, as funny enough, you still collect comics. I had to stop collecting comics because when I was growing up, I was very poor. Either I had to not eat to get my comics and use my lunch money, or I had to get money from couches or something like that to get my comics. And I was very obsessive with them. And so now that I had an income and stuff, I knew that it would be way worse than my Star Wars collection if I continued, especially with technology. So I can just get digital stuff, or I can read or go on Wikipedia or Google if I need some backstory. And I try to use that a way to tame myself because, like I said, I know myself. It's like if I pick up one, I'm such a completist. Like I got one Star Wars gift. I got Anakin as a present, and that spawned into a whole. I had to have everything, and so that's the same thing. I know.
This is the difference: is that I have a business buying and selling comics.
Okay.
So my eBay business is buying and selling comics.
Mm-hmm.
So I pick up retail packages. I pick up, and I'm in the process of building out my own store exclusive in the next 18 months on eBay, which will be a 50 print run. And so there's a lot of other stuff going on. So I'm in the unique situation where I get to buy things for my collection and buy things that I sell. And sometimes they're together in a lot. So sometimes what happens is that I'll buy a book that's worth $150, but I paid $450 for the lot, and then I sell the lot for $600. So I'm in a weird situation where my collection and my business are tied together because when you have 5 books that you're buying and it's $100 and you're keeping one but selling the four pay for the one and then some. So they pay for themselves plus I make a little bit of profit and then it covers the one. And so my whole thing is that, but also sometimes I sell the whole lot and there you go. And weird things come across my position. And then everything eventually is up for sale. It's just that sometimes I want to hold on to a book for 10 years. I'm not ready to sell book A yet. And so cool. That's cool. But it will be up for sale at some point because when I have kids and I'm a lot older, they might not be into comics, and I'd rather give them the money than have me pass away and then have them deal with that and get 20 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, I understand. My collection, I already know my son he's already like showed great interest. I always say in my will right now, my son is, by the time I pass away, if my son is not into it, this will all go to charity. They would all get auctioned off and go to charity. That's the way it is. But my son is a collector like myself. Although I don't force anything into it, I've let him gravitate to whatever. And I love it that way. But he's following in the same footsteps. Like for me, Spider-Man was his first comic. He loves Spider-Man. Like, and then he eventually got into like Hot Wheels, and he loves Hot Wheels. And now he likes Batman. And so he's literally almost any same thing. He's starting to really like Star Wars. I asked him to jump into Star Wars. The only thing that he's ahead of me on is Halo. He loves Halo. He loves Master Chief. So I didn't get into that until Halo came out, but that is a huge love of mine as well, is Halo. And he like literally every day of the week he asks me, can we play dress up? So he likes to do both. Like sometimes what he calls Halo real life. So he likes to play on Xbox and play Halo with me. And then we both have our Master Chief helmets, and we actually pretend we both get our Nerf guns and go around and looking for the Covenant, rescuing Cortana and stuff like that. So we have a lot of fun together doing stuff like that.
I am so bad at Halo. It's so bad. Like if I was to stream on Twitch how bad I am at Halo, people would watch it, and I'd probably get a whole bunch of people like, dude, how does this guy who is somewhat good at Overwatch suck so badly at Halo? It's terrible. So I'm not gonna go do that. I plenty embarrass myself, everybody, without having to play Halo. You all can live without my embarrassment of me playing Halo. I know for some people it might be therapeutic. I get it completely. For me, it's not going to be therapeutic. It's just going to be bad. But so if you're all betting on me playing Halo and watching me die 14 different ways that should not exist, no thank you. I understand that it's a loss for humanity.
Content.
What'd you say?
I said probably make for some good YouTube content.
Humanity can live without that. Humanity can adapt. And that's all I'm gonna say. Humanity could take the L on this one. But I do want to give you a chance to self-promote. So we've been speaking for a while. So where could people find you, bother you, hit you up, find you at a con, social media, all that fun stuff? Because it is very important in today's age.
Okay, so you can find me Cheeky Photography. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I'm on TikTok. I believe my biggest two following. Right now, TikTok is my biggest following. I have an old man's mentality when it comes to sometimes like different platforms. I was very angry when MySpace went away, and it took me a while to even get on Facebook. And so finally on Facebook, and then that was the same way with Instagram. People were migrating to Instagram, were starting to use it. Then I was like, I'm a photographer. It only makes sense to be on Instagram. And then when TikTok came along, I was just like, I don't need TikTok. And then eventually I just got on it a little bit like at the end of last year, and I just blew up. I have this following, this amazing following and support system on TikTok too. So but also too, pretty much if there's a nerd convention in Southern California, you can expect me to be at it. There's I think Dreamcast. I can't remember the name of the con. There's a gaming convention in San Diego next week. I'll be at that, and I'll probably be cosplaying in my arena, the black Boba Fett armor. I'll be in that most of the weekend. And my friend Ryan, my best friend, he's a retired Navy chief as well. He'll be in his 1313 Boba Fett cosplay. So we're going to be, and I think we talked to a couple of our other friends who has Boba Fett armor. So we're just going to be one little Mandalorian pack going along and stuff. So yeah.
And I'm going to keep saying it. You have to support cosplayers. You have to support what you like. And the way you do that is you follow people on social media. You actually, if they have Patreons, Cash Apps, PayPals, buy me a coffee, if they have prints, if they have whatever, it goes a long way. If they have merch, buy their merch. It makes a big difference. And also interacting with them and following them on social media. Following somebody on social media and then clicking that heart on Instagram on even a photo, even just one every week, it makes a big difference. Same thing with Facebook, same thing with TikTok and all that stuff. I'm just liking it, and it's free, and you don't know who's going to see it, when they're going to see it, and how it's going to affect the algorithm, and it could very well make a difference. So I really do encourage people to do it, especially when it's free. And it's super important at this point. If you like something, you like what people are doing, you need to support it, and there's millions of ways how to do it. As far as I'm concerned, obviously I am Pop Anime Comics on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I am Pop Anime Comics on TikTok, which is technically the first time I'm telling people. I'm actually taking a break from TikTok because I'm actually building out the content for it. So I'm actually gearing up to build up 90 TikToks. So I actually have a nice steady stream of content. I am also Pop Anime Comics on YouTube, and I have 900 and I think 17 videos on YouTube. A lot of short clips, a lot of interviews, probably 400 to 500 interviews at this point over 10 years. So there's an interview for you, voice acting, cosplayers, wrestlers, mainstream comics, indie comics, the occasional adult interview, if you will, is up there, as well as authors and a variety of other really interesting people. And you never know who's coming on my show. So definitely there's an interview for you is all I'm going to say. And again, it's free. So that's all I have to say about what I got. I also have Buy Me a Coffee, and my ad rates are up there. But beyond that, that's all I have to say.
The other plug I want to give is for Yoda's News, a big part of me. Yoda's News has been around. They actually this year hit 19 years. They brought me on staff to write and to be one of the photographers. I'm pretty much the West Coast liaison for YodasNews.com. Go ahead and make sure you follow them too. Same thing, Yoda's News on all platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and stuff. So I do a lot of journalism and representation for them. And I also, whenever I do my reviews on my figures and stuff, I usually push that towards Yoda's News and stuff. So
yeah, no, I don't know much about them, but I definitely need to check that out because I'm a little bit of a Star Wars nerd, and I like Star Wars. So yeah, there you go. And Yoda is very wise, very wise. That's all I'm gonna say. But that's pretty much everything, and I'm gonna give you the final word. Take us out.
well, my final word is, for those people who are thinking about cosplaying and you're considering it, I'm saying do it. It is so much fun. It is so much fun dressed, not just embodying the character and forgetting about all your cares in the world and just having fun, but also too the children and other people who are fans that may see you at conventions or things like that. And it brings up the nostalgia, the high, the rush that you get is just amazing. And also too, if you like to give to the community, if you like to help people, you have a helping heart, I suggest find one of the local cosplay groups that do it for charity, and that takes your cosplaying to another level. It gives you more of a drive, gives you more of a purpose, because again, it's helping those people with less fortune. I believe the universe and God will repay you in different ways, to actually to feel that void, that broken child within you is a big thing. And I love cosplaying for charity cause. I love doing it for cause. And I love doing it for myself. There's nothing like, I said, taking my favorite character and putting them on and doing some cool photos or recreating. And the same thing goes in photography. And if you're looking to become a photographer and doing it for cosplay, YouTube is one of the best resources that you have. Don't go pay for no expensive school unless it's paid for you, then go if you have that. But don't waste your money on it when there's so many people who are willing to teach and I love teaching photography as well. So if you want to follow me, reach out and say, hey, I'm thinking about it, whether it be photographing toys or people or animals, because I don't put a box on my photography. I shoot everything, babies, weddings, you name it, everything you could think of. Not so much real estate. That's kind of boring. I'm an agent. I shoot my own house. I shoot my own listings just to save money. But for the most part, I don't do real estate photography. It's just, I can make more money actually selling houses and doing things than actually doing that. So
Yeah, I don't think I could have said that any better myself, and I believe that is a wrap, everybody.